The one thing that psilocybin,
Psychedelics.
Psychedelic mushrooms.
The psychedelic.
I guess the biggest misconception people have about psychedelics is that these are drugs that make you crazy.
Okay, so what do these mushrooms even do to your brain?
For like the longest time, I've always had this curiosity for shrooms. What the hell is all the hula about? Right from college days, there's always been this cloak of mystery surrounding it. We all have that one friend who meets God or something outlandish after doing shrooms. He's all of a sudden enlightened. So I really wanted to know, what are these shrooms doing inside your head? Like, what neural pathways are they stimulating, or what brain regions they're stimulating? The short answer is, we don't know all the neural pathways, all the brain regions, and all the receptors it's targeting, but we do know some of it. And don't worry, this some of it is really insightful. It gives you sort of a lens to look at the effects and say, okay, this is where it's going. Reading all of these medical papers and journals wasn't a complete waste of time after all.
Let's hope so.
Okay, so we need to know a little bit of neurology before we begin. Just a little bit. I'll complete it under a minute. You see, your brain is made up of 100 billion neurons, same as what Jeff Bezos is worth. And each of these 100 billion neurons are connected to each other in a mesh. It's a complete mess inside your head. And this mush of neurons produce chemicals called neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin. Dopamine and serotonin govern the activities of daily living. We get dopamine from food, sex, exercise, etc., etc. But we don't need that here. What we need is serotonin. It's that zen-like feeling associated with happiness and well-being, that contentment in the present and mindfulness. There are other functions of serotonin as well, but we don't need to get into all that here. This psilocybin substance present in these mushrooms is similar to serotonin in structure and function as well. You could somewhat correlate its effects to the serotonin spectrum of effects, but kind of.
Okay, all this is fine, but what do I remember from this 1-minute bombardment?
Okay, that would have been a lot of jargon depending on who you are, but if you remember just these two things, you're good. First, this psilocybin chemical present in these mushrooms attaches to all kinds of receptors in the brain, including 5-HT2A. Remember that. This receptor is involved in memory and cognition. So it may very well impact stored memories. And in addition to this, it produces a global connectivity response in the brain. Okay, screw all these receptors. Let's talk about what happens when you pop a dozen mushrooms in Kodaikanal. Okay, so after you ingest these mushrooms, it goes to your GI tract and it is converted to psilocin, the active compound. This chemical, which is present in and around your stomach, goes from the GI tract into the bloodstream and then into your brain. All this takes about an hour, and in your brain, through its effects on 5-HT2A and other kinds of receptors, it stimulates the brain to form new connections, new novel connections, the kind of networking effect not seen since childhood.
So these mushrooms just makes your brain childlike, is it?
Yeah, you could say that, but only temporarily. Okay, this is an fMRI scan of the brain, basically a fancy way of measuring brain activity. Here you can see a normal brain scan, and this is the brain after ingestion. You can see the extraordinary increase in activity and connection pathways in this one compared to this one. This stimulus that the mushroom gives you a new perspective altogether, a different way of thinking, disrupting the default thinking patterns and behaviors. It is basically a random connection superpower, disrupting the default thinking patterns. Maybe you could call this superpower neural plasticity?
A superpower, huh? All this is fascinating, but this seems too good to be true. Just pop the mushroom and voila, you're Superman, huh?
Yeah, you're right. Let's not get too ahead of ourselves, hailing it as a solely beneficial superpower. It is not that.
Remember, with great power comes great responsibility.